Good morning, everyone. So I need to be completely honest with you today. I woke up feeling kind of sick and trying to gather myself so I can take on a day that, of course, is filled with appointments and meetings. And, I'm telling you this because I know you can relate to that feeling of having a ton to do, but not quite feeling up to the agenda for the day, right? In fact, I'd imagine that this happens more often than not in your role as a dementia care partner. So I'm trying to plow through the morning, but it's becoming very obvious that while I can do it, I will probably feel even worse, and for sure my work, the quality is not going to be that great. So, and I, of course, I'm thinking about dementia, right? At this time, and I've noticed, and I wonder if you can relate to this, that when it comes to dementia, forcing my way through or forcing my agenda on someone else not only doesn't usually work, but it can backfire miserably. Because when a person living with dementia, or anyone for that matter, feels like they're being controlled, they're likely to get angry, and we are likely to be met with a revolt in some form or another. So what I decided, instead of not posting altogether, I decided I would take a lesson from dementia and modify my approach to the day. And what I'd like to do is share a story with you about one of my encounters with a client that has to do with this very topic, and that is how forcing our way through is usually not the best option. Instead, I've learned that making some adjustments, like allowing ourselves extra time and being patient with ourselves, can make things go and flow much more smoothly. And since I like this time to be relaxing and energizing for you, I invite you to listen to the story. Just sit back, get comfy, close your eyes. It's like story time, right? Relive those story time days. Close your eyes, relax, and I will pull up the story from my computer. All right, so I called this is actually a blog post I wrote a few years ago. It's based on working with one of my just beloved clients who had frontotemporal dementia. And I call it Pause for Peace and Patience. If you want to ever reread it, you can find it in the blog section of my website, sweetbasilcare.com. Anyway, here we go. Whew. Pause, peace, patience has become something of a mantra lately because I often find myself impatient to solve problems and decide on a direction. However, lately the universe has been reminding me almost constantly that I'm not in charge, and factors too numerous to count affect the outcome of nearly everything. I arrived at my client Dawn's memory care community around 10 o'clock this morning. As soon as I enter the building, I'm greeted by the director, who tells me in an annoyed tone she's been blocking the door and trying to leave all morning. I feel frustrated by the director's indifference, but also bummed out. Dawn moved in 2 weeks ago, and we were anticipating exit seeking for a variety of reasons, but were pleasantly surprised when this didn't immediately happen. But now it's here. My second reaction is to worry that this might ruin everything for Dawn if they're not interested in taking the time to make this a successful transition. My third reaction is to feel anxious about not being able to help her through this difficult time. I know this isn't going to go well if I force my own agenda on Dawn by physically moving her away from the door or taking off the jacket she's wearing that doesn't belong to her. I also decide that returning all the stuff to her room that she's moved into the lobby can wait. I'm getting better at reminding myself to pause, take a breath, and be patient, so I choose to chill out, settle in the moment with John, and see how things go. I know that arguing and persuading will only end in frustration and could possibly escalate to something worse. Dawn tells me that a friend usually comes to take her out for coffee and she's waiting for her. That friend is me. For the past year or so, I've been taking her to her favorite coffee shop, among other things. Dawn no longer accurately remembers this, but obviously there's something familiar about me and my purpose for coming today. I admit that I'm not here to take her out, but ask her if it would be okay if I hang out with her for a while as she waits. I suggest that we sit down in the nearby comfy chairs, and luckily she agrees to move away from the door. Before I got out of the car and entered Dawn's world today, I remembered to pause for a few seconds, take a breath, and clear my mind of to-do lists and other thoughts. This helps me prepare for our time together. Today, after doing this, a fleece blanket that I had in the trunk caught my eye, and I quickly stuffed it into my tote bag. The blanket has pieces of fringe to tie together, and the activity was a big fail when I tried it with Dawn before. Zero, and I mean zero interest on her part. But, much to my surprise, for some reason it held her attention today for over 30 minutes. Maybe the softness of the fabric was comforting, or maybe she's declined cognitively and this is now an interesting activity for her. In any case, I thank the universe for nudging me to bring it along today. We sat in comfy chairs and worked on the blanket, and as we worked, I waited for my opening. I patiently waited for a moment where Dawn might be receptive to the idea of not leaving the building today. I had no idea if or when it would come, but I was hopeful it eventually would. And then, after we'd been together for about 40 minutes, the opening arrived. It was very subtle, and fortunately, I was calm enough to be able to recognize my cue. While we worked on the blanket, I had asked Dawn a few times if she wanted to take off her jacket while she waited, and she eventually said, "It looks cold out there." "Yep, it's cold and slippery," I agree. "Have you noticed that there are a lot more people coming in than leaving? It's so warm and cozy here. Maybe tomorrow will be a better day to go out." Now, I have the luxury of knowing Dawn very well and know that she's really into the weather. She checks her phone weather app all the time and over-prepares. She brings along an umbrella at the hint of rain, and it took us until June last year to gently convince her to transition from her winter parka to a light sweater. Waterproof shoes are her preferred footwear choice. I thanked the dementia angels, as Dawn agreed with my weather assessment, and that tomorrow may be a better day to leave after all. She also agreed that it would be a good idea to bring her possessions back to her room so they wouldn't be moved or go missing. And just like that, we were back in her room, where she removed the mystery jacket and used the bathroom. We listened to her favorite music, chatted for a bit, and then headed to the lunch table. Some may say that I had all the time in the world to spend with Dawn, which is unrealistic in most memory care settings. But the truth is, I spent much less time with Dawn than the staff who'd been trying to move her away from the door for hours. The 13th century poet Rumi says, "As you start to walk on the way appears." This arrived in my inbox recently, and the wisdom directly relates to how we can offer support for clients who are experiencing a difficult moment. Arriving with a calm spirit, having as little of an agenda as possible, and having faith that a solution will eventually appear will pave the way for happier moments. Thanks for listening. Feel free to hang out with your eyes closed for a while. And otherwise, just please join me today and go with the flow. Good luck. You've got this.